Some of you have heard this story before, my apologies, but some of you haven't. And I do have a few new things to say. Many, many years ago, I accompanied our teenage youth group on a mission trip to the Shoshone-Paiute Indian Reservation in central Nevada. We worked very, very hard fixing houses by day, and then in the evening we would gather around a campfire, share a meal, and tell stories. We slept on a floor in a school gym and then got up in the morning and did it all again. One evening, as we gathered around the campfire and shared a meal, a tribal elder came to tell us stories. And these weren't just any stories, but sacred stories of the tribe that went back generations. He told us stories of how the great Creator brought the Shoshone-Paiute people across mountains and deserts at great peril until they came to what is now central Nevada. He told stories of how the great Creator saved them from calamities and mortal dangers and from certain death. He told story after story after story, and we were captivated. He began each story this way, and I want you to hold these words closely. Here is how he started each story. I don't know if it happened exactly this way, but this is a true story. I don't know if it happened exactly this way, but this is a true story. As I listened, this wise elder opened for me a way of hearing my own sacred stories, the Bible, a way that was new to me, but deeply, deeply ancient. For a few moments, I'd like you to reach back in your imagination, far back, to a time before the printing press, a time before Jesus and Moses, to a time even before the printed word. Long, long ago, generations ago, people would gather around a campfire and share a meal, and they would tell stories. They would tell the stories of their ancestors long before them, and how the Creator had saved them from calamities, mortal dangers, and certain death. They didn't know if it happened exactly this way, but these were true stories. The details were not as important as the truth behind the stories. And each time they told the story, the ancient stories became alive for them. These stories became not just about their ancestors, but about their own stories, their own encounters with the holy. And they passed these stories from generation to generation until they were written down in what we now call the Bible. This morning, we hear a sacred story of Jesus turning water into wine. Jesus is at a wedding feast, and the guests have consumed all of the wine. His mother Mary asks him to keep the party going, although we don't know why she wants to keep the party going. Jesus, who really sounds like he'd really rather go home, changes 6 large stone jars of water into wine. A scholarly friend of mine, Dan Jocelyn Semitowski, did a calculation yesterday that this amount of wine is the equivalent of at least 600 standard-sized bottles of wine. or at least 50 cases of wine. That is a lot of wine. And it's not just any wine, it's really, really good wine. I don't know if it happened exactly this way, but it's a true story. Something happens at this wedding feast that spins their heads around, and it's not just the wine. And they know they are in the presence of the holy. At its heart, this is a true story of Jesus demonstrating God's dazzling grace and hospitality bursting into the world. This grace and hospitality that is more abundant than anything any of us can imagine. As Dean Matthews said, Jesus is about the parties. On a deeper level, this story, like so many other stories in the Bible, is about people encountering the holy and how these encounters change their lives. As they tell the stories over and over, they may not get the details exactly right, but they know these are true stories, and they pass these stories to those who come after them. Consider what we are doing in church this morning. We are sitting around a campfire, the candles. We are sharing a sacred meal, and we are telling the ancient stories, the Bible, once again. And as we tell these stories, they become our stories. I believe all of us are in these stories because all of us are capable of encountering the holy, whether we realize it or not. All of us have a story of the holy, whether we realize it or not. This is not about intellect or religious doctrine or theological sophistication. It's not about popular ideas of religion or political affiliations or religious institutions. This is about openness to the Spirit, or as Jesus says many times in the Gospels, having ears to hear, to notice the holy right in front of us. As St. Paul puts it in his letter today, there are, quote, a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit. The same Spirit that manifests itself in an infinite variety of ways. We encounter the Spirit in an infinite variety of ways that is unique to each and every one of us. Sometimes we encounter the holy in the big moments, and at other times in the small moments. Sometimes these moments come in everyday life, in the smile of a stranger or the kindness of a friend. And sometimes these moments come in those rare aha moments that spin our head around. I vividly remember walking down a road at night in the Mojave Desert years ago and being dumbstruck by how the earth melded into the universe all around me. And I could feel this spiritual presence far beyond anything I could comprehend. And I felt a wholeness and a healing that transcended whatever worries and difficulties were then confronting me, things I have long forgotten. And somehow I knew my life was different. Maybe you've had those moments too. Hold on to those moments. We need these moments especially now. We live in a time of uncertainty, a time of division, a time of heartbreaking loss. Maybe you have friends and family, I do, who have lost homes in the Los Angeles wildfires. Or maybe you have a friend or loved one, I do, who has recently passed away. I'm going through those losses, and I know some of you are too. And this is why we need to look for these life-giving moments of holiness and grace surrounding us every day. Look for the holy moments. These holy moments are building blocks of faith. The church at its best provides a community and a structure for living into the promises of these holy moments. And when we gather to share the bread and wine of our Holy Communion in a few moments, we are entering into a holy moment. We share this sacred meal with each other, and we share this sacred meal with everyone who's come before us, filling these walls with prayers for more than a century. And just like the first guests at the wedding party in Cana, Jesus gives us the best wine and beckons us to share this abundantly with each other and the world around us and all those who will come after us. This is a true story, and we write it with our lives, and it happens exactly this way. Amen.